Take it slow, but it's not typical. He already knows that my love is fire. His heart was a stone, but then his hands rolled. I turned him to gold and it took him higher. But I'll be a daydream, I'll wear your favorite things. We could be beautiful, get drunk on the good life. I'll take you to paradise. Say you'll never let me go. Deep in my bones, I can feel you. Take me back to a time only we knew how to wait. We could waste a night with an old film, smoke a little weed on the couch in the back room, how to wait. Say you'll never let me go. 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 Deep in my bones, I can feel you. Take me back to a time only we knew how to wait. We could waste a night with an old film, smoke a little weed on the couch in the back room, how to wait. Say you'll never let me go. 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 I'm sorry if I seem uninterested, or I'm not listening, or I'm indifferent. Truly, I ain't got no business here, but since my friends are here, I just came to kick it. But really, I would rather be at home all by myself, not in this room with people who don't even care about my well-being. I don't dance, don't ask, I don't need a boyfriend, so you can't go back. Please enjoy your party, I'll be here. Somewhere in the corner under clouds of marijuana with this boy who's hollering I can hardly hear. Oh, with this music I don't listen to, and I don't wanna get with you, so tell my friends that I'll be over here. Oh, here. Oh, here. Oh, I ask myself, what am I doing here? Oh, here. Oh, here. wait so we can break apart to hear me. If I seem a little unimpressed with this, an antisocial pessimist, but usually I don't mess with this. And I know you mean only the best, and your intentions aren't to bother me. But honestly, I'd rather be somewhere with my people. We can kick it and just listen to some music with the message. And we'll discuss our big dreams, how we plan to take over the planet. So pardon my manners, I hope you'll understand that I'll be here. Not there in the kitchen with the girl who's always gossiping about her friends. Oh, tell them I'll be here. Right next to the boy who's throwing up cause he can't take what's in his cup no more. Oh God, why am I here? Oh, here. Oh, here. Oh, I ask myself, what am I doing here? Oh, here. Oh, here. And I can't wait so we can break apart the I ask myself, what am I doing here? Yeah, I'd rather be a lover than a fighter. Cause all my life I've been fighting. Never felt a feeling of comfort. All this time I've been hiding. And I never had someone to come on. Oh, nah, I'm so used to shit. Love only left me alone. But I'm at one with the silence. I found peace in your vibes. Can't show me there's no point in trying. I'm at one, and I've been quiet for too long. I found peace in your vibes. Can't show me there's no point in trying. I'm at one, and I've been silent for too long. I've been quiet for too long. I've been quiet for too long. I found peace in your vibes. Can't show me there's no point in trying. I'm at one, and I've been quiet for too long. I'm in need of a savior, but I'm not asking for favors. My whole life I feel like a burden. I think too much and I hate it. I'm so used to being in the wrong. I'm tired of caring. Loving never gave me a home. So I sit here in the silence. I found peace in your vibes. Can't show me there's no point in trying. I'm at one, and I've been quiet for too long. I found peace in your vibes. Can't show me there's no point in trying. I'm at one, and I've been silent for too long. I've been quiet for too long. I've been quiet for too long. I found peace in your vibes. Can't show me there's no point in trying. I'm at one, and I've been quiet for too long.
Attention,
I've been feeling so down, I think they should know now. I think they should know what's up. That's that road I've been down. I know how it go down, I know how it go. Now what's up? I feel like I don't belong, I feel like my life is wrong. I feel like I don't know what's up. What's up? What's up? Yeah. Hey, I ain't here to pick and choose, I ain't here to sing the blues. I'm just here to spread the clues, I'm just here to spread the news. Everybody know I do. Listen, I ain't ashamed to be white, I ain't ashamed to be black, I ain't ashamed of my beautiful Mexican wife, as a matter of fact. I know you fucking with that, and I'm not scared of the people who tell me I should be. Do what you love and don't ever wonder what it could be. Everybody from my hood, everybody know I'm good. Sometimes I'm misunderstood, but that's just the uneducated that never related. It feel like I'm faded, it feel like I'm faded, I'm right on my mind. Tell her, mama don't love me, daddy don't love me. Wonder why I drown in the bubbly. You could be anything you wanna be. Set the person you don't wanna be. Let them hate, let them love. Wondering if everybody's still like this up above. When that push kinda shove, made me wanna pull up with the gat and the glove. Like, I just wanna be free, not a slave to the stereotype. All alone in my room in the middle of the night. I don't have the words, but my stereo mic. I don't wanna be black, I don't wanna be white. I just wanna be a man today. I don't gay straight up, I see you later, bye. Not perceived by the things I believe, or the color of my skin, or the fact I'm attracted to her, maybe him, and the fact I'm a single mother living all alone, looking for a man and a home to call my own. But I already had one. The only man I'ma ever need is my son, my son, my son, my son, son. Say, black is beautiful, black is beautiful. Be black and proud, be black and proud. Fuck everybody hating on me right now. I'm black and proud, black and proud. I'm just as white as that Mona Lisa. I'm just as black as my cousin Keisha. I'm biracial, so bar Felicia. Praise black Jesus, not called a preacher. Maybe Jesus was black, maybe Jesus had dreads. Spider-Man should be black. I vote for Glover instead. Glover instead. Like what's up? I vote for more and 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 more. I vote for so much more. I've been feeling so down. I think they should know now. I think they should know what's up. That's that road I've been down. I know how it go down. I know how it go. Now what's up? I feel like I don't belong. I feel like my life is wrong. I feel like I don't know what's up. What's up? What's up? Let your soul go. Let your soul
You are now listening to a Bobby Johnson beat.
Hey, pop the trunk, I open up, I sold my soul a good price, out of sight. My hoe got talent, right? Whole squad ran, do that shit, yikes. Say, I'm a businessman and then my business damn. And I'ma bend her down, then I'ma lick her up and then dig her down. She gon' turn around, then I'ma kick her out. She gon' talk that shit, but say, how you make it up? How you fake the love? Holy son, I'm with the chosen one. I'm sipping out the grass, she don't kiss the touch. Keep my wishes well, I don't need a well. Yeah, how my enemy a friend of me? Why y'all feed off of my energy? Like I ain't dead, yeah, I an entity. Foreign bitches think she into me with the foreign very viciously. Why these dudes wanna take pics from me? Said she gay, but still into me. Said she gay, still into me. Said she hate that I'm ministry. And I said I hate that I'm ministry. I wanna blow up and make history. Said she hate my Insta feed. Zans don't make you, Zans gon' take you. Zans gon' fake you, Zans gon' betray you. Zans don't make you, Zans gon' take you. Zans gon' fake you, Zans gon' betray you. And that pussy tastes like Skittles, what? Yeah, ayy, you can't really taste the rainbow, what? I know, yo bitch just like a Crayola. What, ayy, you could draw her on the table, flip her like some Yola. Heart-shaped kisses, I really miss my mistress. I'm 666, evil bitches want my mentions. Heart-shaped kisses, Really miss my mistress and it's 666. Evil bitches want my mentions. Zans don't make you, Zans gon' take you. Zans gon' fake you, Zans gon' betray you. Zans don't make you, Zans gon' take you. Zans gon' fake you, Zans gon' betray you. Zans gon' fake you, Zans gon' betray you. Zans gon' take you, Zans gon' betray you. Zans gon' take you, Zans gon' take you. What? Hey, what? Hey. Zans gon' take you. Yeah, Zans gon' take you. Zans gon' take you.
You're now listening to a Bobby Johnson
Yeah,
beat.
hey, I like lean, I like drugs, I like beams, I got plugs, what you need, no funds, what you bleed, oh you tough, heard my raps, they like nah, now they ask what my price, I'm like no, out of sight, I'm like yeah, out of sight, I might stay, MIA, I might go. MIA, I might stay, MIA, I might go, MIA, please stay the fuck away, that's my shit, stay away, I got low on my face. these clothes, but no babe. I got hoe out of state. I got weed for the low. I don't pop fucking Zans. I might pop a Norco. We ain't with no fuck shit. We ain't around no fuck shit. We ain't with no fuck shit. We ain't around no fuck shit. Fuck.
I'm really around no fuck shit. Nah, I stay.
For that shit, 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 like yeah, hey, for that bitch, for that bitch, for that bitch, like yeah, hey.
Mapper uses Core ML to provide intelligent features that make it easy to find or rent your apartment. And Visual DX is even pioneering new health diagnostics with Core ML, automating skin image analysis to assist dermatologists with their diagnosis. These are just a few examples. There's so much more to come. Next, I'd like to talk about the Mac, which had its best year ever, with the highest annual Mac revenue in Apple's history. It was also the best September quarter ever, with Mac revenue growth of 25%, driven by the notebook refreshes we launched in June and a strong back-to-school season. The Mac experience has become even better since the September launch of macOS High Sierra, with new technologies to make Mac more reliable, capable, and responsive, and lay the foundation for future innovation. September launch of Mac. Moving on now to Apple Watch. With unit growth of over 50% for the third consecutive quarter, it continues to be the best-selling and most loved smartwatch in the world. We began shipping Apple Watch Series 3 just 6 weeks ago, and customers love the new freedom of cellular. The ability to go for a run with just your Apple Watch, or go for a quick errand without your phone while staying connected is a game changer. Now more than ever, Apple Watch is the ultimate device for a healthy life and is already making a big difference in our customers' lives. We're very excited about the upcoming launch of the Apple Heart Study, which will use data from Apple Watch to identify irregular heart rhythms and notify users when unusual patterns are detected. Earlier this week, we introduced watchOS 4.1, bringing 40 million songs to your wrist through Apple Music. The combination of music streaming on Apple Watch and AirPods is truly a magical experience for people on the go. We're thrilled with the momentum of these products. In fact, our entire wearables business was up 75% year over year in the fourth quarter, and in fiscal 2017 already generated the annual revenue of a Fortune 400 company. Late in the September quarter, we also launched Apple TV 4K, delivering a stunning cinematic experience at home. So now users around the world can watch movies and shows in 4K HDR quality and stream live sports and news on the Apple TV app. There's already a great selection of 4K HDR titles available through iTunes and other popular video services, with many more movies and shows on the way. We're also very excited about the opening of Apple Michigan Avenue 2 weeks ago on Chicago's riverfront. This is the first store that brings together our complete vision for the future of Apple retail, providing a welcoming place for everyone to experience our products, services, and inspiring educational programs right in the heart of their city. In addition to our very popular Today at Apple programming, which is available in all Apple stores around the world, offering daily sessions in photography, music creation, art and design, coding, and entrepreneurship, Apple Michigan Avenue is partnering with local nonprofits and creative organizations to make an ongoing positive impact in that community. Also this quarter, we expanded our free app development with Swift curriculum to more than 30 community colleges across the country. We're very excited about this initiative, and we're thrilled by the momentum we're seeing. The schools we've launched with this summer are just the beginning. Community colleges have a powerful reach into communities where education is the great equalizer, and the colleges adopting our curriculum this academic year are providing opportunity to millions of students to build apps that will prepare them for careers in software development and information technology and much more. We're incredibly enthusiastic about what our teams have accomplished this year and all the amazing products in our lineup. As we approach the holiday season, we expect it to be our biggest quarter ever. I'd like to thank all of our teams, our partners, and our customers for their passion, commitment, and loyalty. You've helped us make 2017 a sensational year. Now for more details on the September quarter results, I'd like to turn over the call to Luca.
Thank you, Tim.
Good afternoon, everyone. Revenue for the September quarter was a record $52.6 billion, up 12% over last year, and it has been great to see our growth rate accelerate in every quarter of fiscal 2017. Our terrific performance this quarter was very broad-based, with revenue growth in all our product categories for the second quarter in a row, and new September quarter revenue records in the Americas, in Europe, and in the rest of Asia Pacific segments. We grew double digits in the US, Canada, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Korea, and several other developed markets. We were especially happy to return to growth in Greater China, where revenue was up 12% from a year ago, and with our momentum in India, where revenue doubled year over year. We grew more than 30% in Mexico, the Middle East, Turkey, and Central and Eastern Europe. These results helped fuel overall growth of over 20% from emerging markets. Gross margin was 37.9% at the high end of our guidance range. Operating margin was 25% of revenue, and net income was $10.7 billion. Diluted earnings per share were $2.07, up 24% over last year to a new September quarter record, and cash flow from operations was strong at $15.7 billion. During the quarter, we sold 46.7 million iPhones, up 3% over last year. We were very pleased to see double-digit iPhone growth in many emerging markets, including mainland China, the Middle East, Central and Eastern Europe, India, and Mexico. We gained share not only in those markets, but also in Canada, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Sweden, and Singapore, based on the latest estimates from IDC. iPhone channel inventory increased by 1.3 million units sequentially to support the launch of iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, significantly less than the increase in the September quarter a year ago. Customer interest and satisfaction with iPhone are very strong with both consumers and business users. In the US, the latest data from 451 Research on consumers indicates a customer satisfaction rating of 97% or higher across all iPhone models. Among consumers planning to buy a smartphone in the next 90 days, purchase intention for iPhone was 69%, more than 5 times the rate of the closest competitor, with a loyalty rate for current iPhone owners of 95%, compared to 53% for the next highest brand. For corporate smartphone buyers, iOS customer satisfaction was 95%, and of those planning to purchase smartphones in the December quarter, 80% plan to purchase iPhone. That is the highest score for iPhone in the history of the survey. Turning to services, we set an all-time quarterly record of $8.5 billion, up 34% year over year. Our results included a favorable one-time revenue adjustment of $640 million. On a run rate basis, excluding this adjustment, services growth of 24% was terrific and the highest that we have experienced this year. The App Store set a new all-time record, and according to App Annie's latest report, it continues to be the preferred destination for customer purchases by a wide and growing margin, generating nearly twice the revenue of Google Play. We're getting great response to the App Store's new design in iOS 11 from both customers and developers. We're seeing increases in the frequency of customer visits, the amount of time they spend in the store, and the number of apps they download. The success of Apple Music also continues to build, and we're seeing our highest conversion rates from customers trying the service. Revenue grew strongly once again in the September quarter, and the number of paid subscribers was up over 75% year over year. We also saw great performance from our iCloud business, with very strong double-digit growth in both monthly average users and revenue. Across all of our services offerings, the number of paid subscriptions reached over 210 million at the end of the September quarter, an increase of 25 million in the last 90 days. Apple Pay expanded to Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and the UAE last month and continues to grow rapidly. Over the past year, active users have more than doubled, and annual transactions are up 330%. In the U.S., 70% of leading grocery chains are now accepting Apple Pay with the recent launch of Safeway. And over 5 million U.S. merchant locations will be Apple Pay enabled by the end of this year. Next, I'd like to talk about the Mac, which for fiscal 17 set a new all-time revenue record of $25.8 billion. We sold 5.4 million Macs during the September quarter, up 10% over last year, and gained significant market share as the global market contracted by 1% based on IDC's latest estimate. This performance was fueled primarily by great demand for MacBook Pro, and Mac revenue grew 25% to a new September quarter record. We had outstanding results all around the world, with each of our geographic segments growing Mac revenue by 20% or more. We were also very happy with the success of Mac in the education market, where customer purchases grew double digits year over year. It was also another great quarter for iPad. We sold 10.3 million units, up 11% over last year, with strong demand for both iPad and iPad Pro, and revenue grew 14%. It was great to see iPad unit and revenue growth in all of our geographic segments, and particularly strong results in emerging markets, including Greater China, where iPad unit sales were up 25% year over year, and India, which grew 39%. NPD indicates that iPad had 54% share of the U.S. tablet market in the September quarter, including 7 of the 10 best-selling tablets. That's up from 47% share a year ago. Also, the most recent surveys from 451 Research measured customer satisfaction rates of 97% across iPad models, and among people planning to buy tablets, purchase intent for iPad was over 70% for both consumers and businesses. We're seeing great momentum with our enterprise initiatives. During the September quarter, we announced a new partnership with Accenture, who is creating a dedicated iOS practice in select locations around the world. Experts from Apple are co-locating with this team, and together they'll be launching new tools and services that help enterprise clients transform how they engage with customers using iPhone and iPad. Examples include services to build new customer experiences and to facilitate iOS integration with enterprise systems, to help businesses take greater advantage of data from Internet of Things platforms, and to enable the smooth transfer of existing legacy applications and data to modern iOS apps. And last month, we announced a partnership with GE to reinvent the way industrial companies work by bringing GE's industrial IoT platform to iOS. The Predix SDK for iOS will enable developers to build native apps to drive industrial operations with more efficiency and speed than ever before. GE is also standardizing on iPhone and iPad for its global workforce of more than 330,000 employees. And working with Apple, GE is developing iOS apps for both its internal and external audiences to bring predictive data and analytics to workers across a broad range of industries. Beyond our iOS devices, we're also seeing great traction for Mac in the enterprise market, with all-time record customer purchases in fiscal year 2017. The September quarter was very strong for our retail and online stores, which welcomed 418 million visitors. Traffic was particularly heavy during the week of our new product announcements, up 19% over last year. Retail ran a very successful back-to-school promotion in the Americas, Europe, China, and Singapore, with sales of Mac and iPad Pro up strong double digits compared to last year's program. And around the world, our stores conducted over 200,000 Today at Apple sessions during the quarter. Let me now turn to our cash position. We ended the quarter with $268.9 billion in cash plus marketable securities, a sequential increase of $7.4 billion. $252.3 billion of this cash, 94% of the total, was outside the United States. We issued $7 billion in new Canadian and U.S. dollar denominated debt during the quarter, bringing us to $104 billion in term debt and $12 billion in commercial paper outstanding. We also returned $11 billion to investors during the quarter. We paid $3.3 billion in dividends and equivalents and spent $4.5 billion on repurchases of 29.1 million Apple shares through open market transactions. We also launched a new $3 billion ASR program, resulting in initial delivery and retirement of 15.1 million shares, and we retired 4.5 million shares upon the completion of our 11th ASR during the quarter. We have now completed almost $234 billion of our $300 billion capital return program, including $166 billion in share repurchases. As we move ahead into the December quarter, I'd like to review our outlook, which includes the types of forward-looking information that Nancy referred to at the beginning of the call. As a reminder, the December quarter in fiscal 17 spanned 14 weeks, whereas the December quarter this year will include the usual 13 weeks. We expect revenue to be between $84 and $87 billion. We expect gross margin to be between 38% and 38.5%. We expect OPEX to be between $7,650 million and $7,750 million. We expect OI&E to be about $600 million, and we expect the tax rate to be about 25.5%. Also today, our board of directors has declared a cash dividend of 63 cents per share of common stock, payable on November 16, 2017, to shareholders of record as of November 13, 2017. With that, I'd like to open the call to questions.
And we ask that you limit yourself to one-part question and one follow-up. May we have the first question, please?
If you would like to ask a question, please press star one. First, we'll hear from Katy Huberty with Morgan Stanley.
Thank you. Congrats on the quarter. Luca, when do you expect to catch up with iPhone 10 demand? And given it's likely to be not in the December quarter, should we think about March as a better than seasonal revenue quarter because of that iPhone 10 ramp? And then I have a follow-up.
I'll take that, Katie. It's Tim. The ramp for iPhone 10 is going well, especially considering that iPhone 10 is the most advanced iPhone we've ever created, and it has lots of new technologies in it. And so we're really happy that we're able to increase week by week what we're outputting, and we're going to get as many of them as possible to the customers as soon as possible. And so I can't predict at this point when that balance will happen. In terms of March, we obviously don't give guidance beyond the current quarter.
Okay. And in China, growth returned to strong double digits, 12% up. But you've talked historically about that region being more sensitive than others to form factor changes, and the new iPhone 10 form factor was not available in September. And so should we assume that growth in that region only accelerates from here as that new product gets pushed into the market?
Let me talk a little bit about Q4 in China to give a little bit of color on the results. We increased market share for iPhone, Mac, and iPad during the quarter. We hit all-time revenue records for services and for Mac for the PRC during the quarter. We had very strong iPad revenue growth. We had double-digit unit growth in iPhone, and both the upgraders and Android switchers were both up on a year-over-year basis during the quarter. And so the results were broad-based. They were pretty much across the board, as I indicated. The other thing that happened is that the decline that we've been experiencing in Hong Kong moderated. And so it's still down year over year, but less so than it was. And part of that is the compare is an easier compare. And then finally, in terms of another headwind that is a little less than it was, currency has been affecting us more significantly. Last quarter in China, it affected us 1 percentage point. And so the sum of all that, I feel great about the results. We don't obviously provide geographic specific guidance, but you can see from our overall guidance, we think we're going to have a really strong quarter.
Thank you, Katie. Could we have the next question, please?
From Piper Jaffray, Mike Olson.
Good afternoon, and congrats on a strong quarter. Is there any information you can provide on how iPhone 10 pre-orders compared to what you saw with iPhone 8 pre-orders? And then I have a follow-up as well.
Michael, we never go through mix, but I would share with you that the iPhone 10 orders are very strong for both direct customers and for our channel partners, which, as you know, are lots of carriers throughout the world, and we couldn't be more excited to get underway. And I think as of a few minutes ago, the first sales started in Australia. And I'm told we had several hundred people waiting at the store in Sydney, and I'm getting similar reports from across that region.
All right, thanks. And we're excited about augmented reality, and from your perspective and maybe from our perspective on the outside looking in, how do we gauge the success of AR, and what are some of the applications of the technology that you're most excited about today? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question. The reason I'm so excited about AR is I view that it amplifies human performance instead of isolates humans. And so, as you know, it's the mix of the virtual and the physical world, and so it should be a help for humanity, not an isolation kind of thing for humanity. As I go through different countries, as I've been traveling lately and looking at things, some things in the market, other things that are coming, the very cool thing is they're all over the place. I see things that the consumer's going to love because it's going to change shopping. I see things that consumers will love on the gaming side and the entertainment side. I see business-related AR apps as well that are going to be great for productivity in between small and large business. And I see apps that makes me want to go back to K-12 again and repeat my schooling, because I think it changes the game in the classroom a lot. And so the real beauty here is that it's mainstream. And of course, Apple is the only company that could have brought this, because it requires both hardware and software integration, and it requires sort of making a lot of, or giving the operating system update to many people at once. And the software team worked really hard to make that go back several versions of iPhone, so that in we sort of have hundreds of millions of enabled devices overnight. And so there's 1,000+ in the App Store right now. I think this is very much like in 2008 when we fired the gun in the overall App Store, and so that's what it feels like to me, and I think it will just get bigger from here.
Thanks, Mike. Could we have the next question, please?
From Cross Research, Shannon Cross.
Thank you very much. A couple of questions. The first, Tim, can you talk a bit about how you're thinking in terms of the lineup? You go from $340, this is for iPhone, you go from $349 to above $1,000, and it appears that you probably sold a fair amount of the lower end. Perhaps that was to some of the switchers in China and maybe drove some of the growth in China in terms of market share. But how are you sort of thinking about, what went into the guidance for the December quarter? Are you seeing really strong demand at the low end and obviously, expected benefit from the 10 at the high end? I'm just trying to understand because you have such a broader lineup than you've had in prior years.
Yeah, in terms of what we saw in Q4, you can probably tell from the ASP, we had good success, I would say, through the different iPhones. And we've tried hard to have an iPhone that is as affordable as possible for people that really want an iPhone that may have a more limited budget. And we've got, some iPhones that are really great for that market. And then we've got 3 new iPhones, and people will look at these and decide which one they want. And so this is the first time we've ever been in the position that we've had 3 new iPhones at once like this at the top end of the line, and it's the first time we've had a staggered launch. And so we're going to see what happens. But we put our absolutely best thinking that we have here in the guidance that Luca presented, and you can tell from that we're bullish.
Great, thank you. And then in terms of services, $8.5 billion, up 34%. Can you talk about some of the portions of that outperformed, how sustainable? You mentioned China in terms of significant growth in services, but I'm just curious, that's a pretty remarkable number. So I'm curious where what the drivers were. Thank you.
Yeah, Shannon, it's Luca. As I mentioned in the prepared remarks, there was a $640 million adjustment. There was a one-off change, and it's important to call it out because, of course, it's a one-off. And so the underlying growth rate for services in the quarter was fantastic. It was 24%. It's the highest growth rate that we've had for services during fiscal 17. So the business is going incredibly well. I would highlight maybe 3 of these businesses within services. The App Store set a new all-time record. It's going incredibly well. The number of paying accounts continues to grow very strongly, and that's very, very important to us for the App Store business. Apple Music was up. Subscriptions were up 75% year over year. We're getting the highest conversion rates that we've had since the launch of the service. And so we turned the corner in music. You remember that a few years ago we were actually declining in music. Now with the streaming service, in addition to the download business, the business is growing again, and that really helps the growth rate for the entire services business. iCloud is a service that continues to grow very strong double digits, and that's also helping. So we already become the size of a Fortune 100 company. We set a goal for ourselves to double what we did in fiscal 16, and the trajectory is actually quite positive.
Thank you, Shannon. Can we have the next question, please?
Steve Milanovich with UBS.
Thank you. I wanted to try to push a little bit more on the mix. Could you comment whether the 8 Plus outsold the 8 in the quarter? There seems to be some data that suggests that. And the 451 research survey that you're alluding to also finds that over the next 90 days, those buying an iPhone, 43% are planning on buying the 10. Could you comment upon your expectations in terms of the mix going forward? And if you won't do that, perhaps you could comment a bit about your thinking in terms of pushing price elasticity. I think a couple years ago, no one would have imagined selling a phone at this price, and obviously you're pretty confident that you can do it.
Obviously, I'm not going to talk about mix. It's not something that we've done in the past. If you look at the 8 and 8 Plus, when we launched them, they instantly became our top 2 selling products. If you look at 8 Plus in particular, to provide a little color there, 8 Plus for the period of time that we can measure to date has gotten off to the fastest start of any Plus model. That for us was a bit of a surprise, and so a positive surprise, obviously. And so we'll see what happens next. As I mentioned before, we've never had 3 products, and it's only today that the first customers can sort of look at all 3 of those, and I'm sure there's been some people that wanted to do that before deciding even which one. And so we'll see what happens there. But in terms of price elasticity, I think it's important to remember that a large number of people pay for the phone by month. And so if you were to go out on just the U.S., since that tends to be more of the focus of this call, if you look at the U.S. carriers, I think you would find you could buy an iPhone 10 for $33 a month. And so if you think about that, that's a few coffees a week. It's less than a coffee a day, at one of these nice coffee places. The other thing to keep in mind is that many people are now trading in their current iPhone on the next iPhone. And the residual value for iPhone tends to be the highest in the industry, and many people pick up $300, $350 or so for their iPhone. And so that even reduces the monthly payment less. And then obviously some carriers also have promotional things going on. And so I do think it's important to try to place it in that context. In terms of the way we price, we price to the sort of the value that we're providing. We're not trying to charge the highest price we could get or anything like that. We're just trying to price it for what we're delivering. And iPhone 10 has a lot of great new technologies in there that are leading the industry, and it is a fabulous product, and we can't wait for people to start getting it in their hands.
Then I wanted to ask, the Street historically has been a little skeptical about continued innovation, and you've suggested there is more to go. Historically, you weren't first to large screens. You weren't first to OLED. Now, though, you're leading in AR. You're leading with Face ID, which, the all-in a year ago, as some of your guys have suggested, was, kind of very reminiscent of the aggressive Apple. Is it possible going forward that you could accelerate share gains from Android because you're now in a stronger competitive position?
I think, Steve, we've been in a competitive position, and so I probably maybe have a different view than you do, or the folks that you're quoting. There's always doubting Thomases out there, and I've been hearing those for the 20 years I've been here, and suspect I'll hear about them until my retirement. So I don't really listen to that too much. There's lots of fantastic people here, and they're doing unbelievable things. And yes, I view AR as profound. Not today, not the app that you'll see on the App Store today, but what it will be, what it can be. I think it's profound, and I think Apple is in a really unique position to lead in this area.
Thank you, Steve. Could we have the next question, please?
We'll go to Tony Sacconaghi with Bernstein.
Yes, thank you. Just following up a little bit on that question, Tim, you talked a bit about providing a lot of value, and that Apple sets its prices according to value. And I think, given the uniqueness of the product you have with the iPhone 10 in particular, that makes a lot of sense. I guess the question is, given the uniqueness of the value that you have in the marketplace, why shouldn't we expect gross margins to improve this cycle versus previous ones? And perhaps you can talk a little bit about how you think about pricing in the context of gross margin. And I have a follow-up, please.
Tony, I'll take that one. When you said, we price our products for the value that we deliver. We also said that every time we launch new products, the cost structures of the new products tend to be higher than the products that they replace. It's inevitable. We are adding new technologies, new features, and therefore the cost structures go up. We have a very good track record of taking those cost structures, and over the life cycle of the product, we are able to bring them down. There are a lot of elements in the gross margin line that we have good control over, and there are also elements that we don't control. Take, for example, foreign exchange, which has been a significant headwind for the company for the last 3 years now. Also, the mix of products that we sell into the market tends to change over time, and that also has an impact on the overall gross margin for the company. There are situations where the commodities markets are in good shape. There are situations where commodity markets can be a bit out of balance. We have a case right now around memory pricing, which is a headwind for the time being. So there's many puts and takes. The fact that our services business is growing, it should be a positive because our services margins tend to be accretive to company margins. So there's many puts and takes. We tend to think about maximizing gross margin dollars, and because we think that's the most important thing for investors at the end of the day. When we look at our track record over years, I think we've found a good balance between unit growth and gross margins and revenue, and we will continue to do that as we go forward.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then I wanted to revisit this notion of supply and demand, and I realize it's very early and you can't make predictions. I think a common investor question is the iPhone X was made available for sale. It quickly had pushed out availability levels to unprecedented levels versus history. And so I think the really significant question is that initial push out really a function of uniquely strong demand versus history? Or is that push out in availability really a function of much weaker supply versus history? So it would be really helpful. You have in the past commented on first 24-hour orders, for which there were 4 million plus for the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. You have very often on this call talked about targeting when you think you could reach supply-demand balance. So it'd be really helpful if you could provide some context in terms of what you know either about initial orders or about supplies versus history that can help investors try and better understand the little data points that they're seeing in terms of availability of the device. Thank you.
The truth is we don't know. We put our best estimate into the guidance, and you can see from the guidance that we're very bullish, and we feel really great about about the product lineup. We're just sold the first units minutes ago, and so we'll see how things go until you get all of them out there, where customers have the ability to demo and so forth. I think any kind of mixed discussion is very, very much estimating. And so we put our best estimates in, but granted, we've never done this before. So there's no comparison here with either the 3 iPhones nor the staggered launch. And so we're going to learn something.
Thank you, Tony. Could we have the next question, please?
Go to Jim Suva with Citigroup.
Thanks very much, and I'll ask my original question and follow up at the same time because they're slightly different topics. But you'd mentioned great success in India. I believe, Tim, in your prepared comments, you mentioned, I think, India doubled year over year. Based upon market analysis, it looks like Apple's still just a relatively small sliver of the pie there. So, Tim, what would it take to be even more successful in India? Is it, a manufacturing footprint there with your partners? Is it more physical stores? Is it lower price points? Is it the bandwidth that has now caught up to many other countries, or how should we think about that? And then the follow-up question is on the AR/VR, where will it really show up in your income statement? Are you hoping more for hardware sales or services through the apps, or where the excitement will then monetize it within Apple? Thank you.
In terms of India, many of the things that you mentioned are correct. Growing a market like India is a result of all of those things and doing them all well. And so it's analogous to the many years that we put into China. It's building stores, it's building channels, it's building markets, it's building the developer ecosystem. It's having the right product lineup for the market, and I feel like we're making good progress there and are gaining understanding of the market, but we still have a long way to go. Which I sort of see as an opportunity instead of a problem, and I do feel great about the growth rate. And so that's India. I think it's all of those things. As you know, I think we talked about before, we started manufacturing the iPhone SE there 6-9 months ago or so, and the majority of the iPhone SEs that we sold in the domestic market last quarter were manufactured there. And so we also have that going and are hoping that winds up saving some amount of money over time and avoiding some of the compounding of taxes, et cetera. The bandwidth issue has also been an issue, but as you point out, it is being addressed between the large carriers there with Bharti and now Jio investing the way they are. The service in India is materially better than it was just 12 months ago. So there's been a sea change there in a short period of time. So I feel good about all that, but we have a long way to go. In terms of the monetization question on AR/VR, we tend to focus first and foremost on customer experience. And so we're all about making sure the experience is great. And we think that if we get the experience right, that revenues and profits will be a result of getting that right. And so we're very much focused on the experience right now.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much for your details.
Can we have the next question, please?
That'll come from Amit Daryanani with RBC Capital Markets.
Thanks a lot for taking my question, guys. I have two as well. I guess maybe to start with on gross margins, Luca, year over year, revenues are going to be up high single digits at the midpoint. Gross margin will be down a little. Could you just talk about what are the puts and takes on that, and are yield inefficiencies broadly much more severe this time versus what you've seen historically?
Yeah, Amit. So we got in 38 to 38.5. That's up 35 bips sequentially. Obviously, we're getting the leverage from the larger volumes. As I mentioned, I think to Tony, we have higher cost structures every time we launch new products, so that is going to be the offset. And I mentioned particularly the impact from the memory pricing environment, which is a headwind at this point. Just to size it for you, the impact of memory on our gross margin is 40 bips sequentially and 110 bips on a year-over-year basis. So they are meaningful impacts, and I think that is what I think probably you're referring to.
Got it. That's really helpful. And I guess if I could just follow up on the services line, you guys talked about it a fair amount earlier, but even if I exclude the one-time gain, it looks like the back half of 17 accelerated by 500 basis points in fiscal 17 versus the first half of 17. Qualitatively or quantitatively, is there a way to think about how much of this is from expanding of the install base, which is one of the three things you mentioned, I think, versus more dollar per iOS device that you see?
Yeah, I think it's both. As I mentioned, particularly on the App Store, which is very important to us, the number of paying accounts has grown a lot. It's grown a lot because, as you said, the install base has grown, but also because we have made a number of changes that have made it easier for our customers around the world to participate on the App Store and be able to transact on the App Store. We are accepting, for example, more forms of payment today than we were 12 months ago or even six months ago. So that's been very important. We also see that there is a typical spending curve for our customers when they start transacting on the store. They start at a certain level, and they tend over time to get more familiar with the store, and they start to spend more. We're also now very recently made some changes, as you probably have seen, to the design of the App Store, and I was mentioning during the prepared remarks that these changes have been received very favorably, and so people now are spending more time on the store, they download more apps, and that over time translates into monetization. But we also have other businesses that are growing very, very fast and actually accelerating. I mentioned music, I mentioned iCloud, and so it all adds up, and as you correctly point out, our growth rate is accelerating.
Thank you, Amit. Could we have the next question, please?
From Drexel, we'll hear from Brian White.
Yeah, Tim, I'm wondering if we take a look at mainland China and we think about iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus. They've been on sale for a while now. What has been the just general response to those two new iPhones, and also pre-orders around the iPhone 10 in mainland China?
Brian, I hate to repeat this, but we don't really disclose mix. We view it as competitive information that we want to hold tightly ourselves. In terms of the way the pre-order process works in China, in the channel, so not in our direct channel, but in the broader carrier channel, they generally take indications of interest versus something that I would label a pre-order. And so I would hesitate to even quote a number for fear it could be misconstrued. And we'll find out what the demand and where the supply and demand meet sometime in the future. I don't know when yet, but we're really excited to get going to find out.
And Tim, it's interesting that, sales grew 16% sequentially. If you look at the past 5 years, sales were up 7% in the September quarter, so that's an average. Yet you didn't have all your iPhones in the market. So if you had to, what would you attribute that to? It's a pretty big disconnect, 16% versus an average of 7%.
Our emerging market performance during the quarter was very strong. And if you take China out, it's even stronger. But you can see that China rebounded, and as I'd indicated before, the China rebound was broad-based across the products, and so we just had a phenomenal quarter on iPad, on the Mac, on services, on Apple Watch, on iPhone. I mean, we're firing on all cylinders, and so that's what that and our new products give us great confidence headed into this holiday season that this is going to be the best holiday season yet.
Thank you,
Tim,
a replay of today's call will be available for 2 weeks on Apple Podcasts as a webcast on apple.com/investor and by telephone. And the numbers for the telephone replay are 888-203-1112 or 719-457-0820. And please enter confirmation code 2484260. These replays will be available by approximately 5 p.m. Pacific Time today. Members of the press with additional questions can contact Kristen Huguet at 408-974-2414. And financial analysts can contact Joan Hoover or me with additional questions. Joan is at 408-974-4570, and I'm at 408-974-5420. Thank you again for joining us.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's presentation. We do thank everyone for your participation.